Hello, my dear students. How are you doing? You doing good? Fantastic. What's my name? Kyle, exactly, and I'm your favorite English teacher. And this is a simple English video. Why would I make a simple English video? Because if you are pre-intermediate or intermediate in English, the only way you're gonna advance to an advanced level of English is by listening and reading English for your level. Because if you try reading or listening to normal English, advanced English, you're going to get really frustrated and your progress will be slow because you don't really understand that much. Now, if you want a little bit of extra help while watching this video, I paid money to get this video transcribed so that you would have subtitles right here. So please take advantage of it because I want my money to be used efficiently for you. And now that that's been said, let's begin with the topic of today's simple English video. Today I want to talk about the 7 things which are confusing about Argentina for Gringos. Now, a lot of Argentinians don't really follow me because Argentinians prefer British English, and yeah, from what I gather, that's the main reason why they don't pay much attention to me. But I have spent 7 months in Argentina. I like the country. If you want to watch a video of me talking about the things I like about Argentina, you can watch it here. I believe it's in Spanish, not in English, just so you know. But in today's video, I want to talk about the things which are confusing about Argentina for foreigners, and specifically Gringos from Canada or the United States. Now, this video isn't meant to criticize Argentinians. In fact, when I go to Argentina, I don't really have any problems with them. I always find it funny because when I talk to other Latinos, it seems like other Latinos have problems with Argentinians, but Gringos don't really have problems. Now, I do have problems with Argentinians on social media. It seems like Argentinians are more bark than bite, because on social media they are constantly criticizing people and telling them that they're racist or telling them that they're sexist, and it is a little bit annoying. But when I'm in Argentina, Argentinians don't seem to do anything, so that's awesome. But enough of the chit chat, let's begin. The first thing that is confusing for Gringos about Argentina is the pizza. Now, Argentina is a country of immigrants, like the United States, like Canada. But one thing about Argentina is that a majority of the immigrants are from Italy. Of course, the first thing you think about when you think about Italy is amazing food, and of course, the birthplace of pizza. And you would think that because of this, the pizza in Argentina would be incredible. And if you talk to Argentinians, they believe that yes, they have the best pizza in the world. But if you talk to Gringos that have been to Argentina, they're a little bit disappointed by the pizza because it's very strange and, for us, not the best tasting. So let me give you an example of a typical Argentinian pizza. So it's like a regular pizza, but for whatever reason, Argentinians love to put the entire topping on the pizza. Now, what do I mean by entire topping? I mean, instead of taking a pepper and chopping it up into little tiny pieces and distributing it evenly over the pizza, or instead of taking an olive, cutting it up and distributing it evenly over the pizza, and of course, getting rid of the seed, Argentinians really like to put the entire slice of pepper on top of the pizza, or put the entire olive on top of the pizza and give it to the customers. And it just, I don't really understand it. For me, makes it hard to eat the pizza. It makes it hard to enjoy the pizza. And not only that, just the pizzas don't look anything like the pizza you have in mind when you think of Italy. So, of course, as a gringo, I would like to understand how this Argentinian style pizza was created, because it definitely doesn't look like anything from Italy. Of course, the United States had lots of Italian immigrants as well, and the pizzas that are American, which are from the Italians, are completely different than the ones from Argentina. So I don't really understand how the Argentinians made the pizza. If you're Argentinian, let me know why you guys like your pizzas like that, and why you think that they're so delicious. And why are they so different from Italian pizzas? All right, next thing on my list about things that are confusing about Argentina is the coffee. Now actually, I'm not a big coffee lover, but I have many Colombian acquaintances, and some of them have been to Argentina. And one of the biggest complaints that Colombians have about Argentina is the quality of the coffee. Now again, I don't know much about coffee, so if I drink coffee, it tastes like coffee. But Colombians say the coffee isn't very good in Argentina. For me, it's kind of confusing because Argentinians love coffee. Now, I think Argentinians love mate more than coffee, but still, Argentinians love coffee, and Argentinians have fantastic cafes, especially in the capital of Buenos Aires. So you would think, especially because they are south of Brazil, which is the biggest coffee producing country in the world, and they're in the same continent as Colombia, I believe the second biggest producer of coffee in the world, that the Argentinians would get really good quality coffee. But again, according to the Colombians, that's not the case. The coffee isn't very good. So of course, if you're Argentinian, why isn't the coffee of better quality? We want to know. The third thing on my list of things which are confusing about Argentina is the lack of soup. Now, if you're not from Argentina, Argentina, I believe, is the biggest producer of beef, or the biggest exporter of beef in the world. And Argentina is famous for the quality of its beef products. And when you're in Argentina, you are inundated with the amount of beef that you can eat in the country, and it is delicious. But the thing that's confusing is that in most countries of the world that have or eat a lot of meat products, what happens is they butcher the animal, if it's a pig, a cow, a goat, and they'll use all parts of the body. And with the parts of the body that aren't really eaten, such as bones or organs or fats, whatever it is, people will usually make a soup out of it, which is really healthy for you because it gives you all the vitamins that you might be missing if you just ate the nice meat, like the steak or the roast. Right now I can't really think of the different names of the different cuts of meat, but you understand me. So it was confusing for me when I was in Argentina, or when I am in Argentina, that for lunch, for example, you're not going to be eating soup. And even when I asked Argentinians, where's the soup? They kind of look at me funny. And they say they don't really make soup at home either. And again, it's just confusing because I know that the Argentinians are butchering lots of cows. There has to be lots of bones, And with those bones, you'd think that you would make soup, which has lots of collagen, which helps keep you young and beautiful. And I think it's one of the reasons why Colombians and Venezuelans, they stay young for so long, because they have so much soup in their diet. But the only time I ate an Argentinian soup was on Argentinian Labor Day. And on that day, Argentinians will eat locro, which maybe you call it more of a stew. But besides that, I never really ate any soup in Argentina. So yeah, if you're Argentinian, let me know why don't you guys eat a lot of soup? It seems strange when you guys have so much beef in the country. All right, the next thing that's strange for me, confusing for me about Argentina is, again, I don't have problems with Argentinians, but I have seen videos of the typical stuck-up Argentinian behavior. For example, I saw on Twitter a reporter at the World Cup in Qatar, and they asked Mexicans, how do you know somebody's Argentinian? And the Mexican said, oh, it's because of their accent. Then they asked an Argentinian, how can you tell a Mexican is a Mexican? And the Argentinian said,
Amigo, un argentino como reconoce a un mexicano. Eso más feo.
Oh, because Mexicans are ugly. So Argentinians seem to believe that they're very beautiful people, which, yeah, when they're young, it does seem to be true. But the confusing thing for me is the destructive behavior that many Argentinians have towards their bodies. So let me explain, if you're Argentinian, and why it's confusing. So yes, I would say Argentinian women, for example, are very beautiful between the ages of 20 and 28. But they have very bad sleeping routines, it seems to me. They don't eat any soup. They smoke a lot of cigarettes. Maybe the biggest alcohol drinkers in Latin America. And they also love to burn themselves to a crisp in the summertime when there's sun. And yeah, just very confusing for me how people that take such pride in their beauty have such self-destructive behaviors, destroying the collagen in their skin by smoking, sleeping bad, and not eating soup, and also burning themselves until they look like they are from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It's confusing for me. So if you're Argentinian and you believe that Argentinians are beautiful, why do you guys try to destroy yourselves? I want to know. All right, let's keep on going. We're getting close to the end here. The next thing that's confusing about Argentinians is why they hate money so much. Now let me give some examples of this. Now, this is more things I've heard from other gringos. And the best example of this is the customer service in restaurants. This is kind of true for all Latin America, but it seems especially true for Argentina. A gringo goes to a cafe, they order a coffee. Now coffee isn't that hard to make. You just gotta brew it. That takes maybe 2-3 minutes. You put it in a cup, you take it to the customer drinks it. So normally in Canada, the United States, yeah, it takes about 5 minutes. In Argentina, and I've read this many times in the Facebook groups of gringos in Argentina, this can take between 15 minutes to 1 hour just to get a simple coffee. And this confuses gringos because you're getting paid as a server in a cafe. You should be trying to give fast service to your customers, but that doesn't really seem to exist in Argentina. And another example, I heard this story from a gringo, I believe he was in southern Argentina, but he went to a restaurant for supper. Now, if you're not from Argentina, Argentinians like to have supper at about 10 p.m. And for gringos, we like to have supper between 6 and 7 p.m. So a gringo and his buddy, they went to a restaurant, a big restaurant in southern Argentina. They enter the restaurant and there's nobody there because Argentinians have supper at 10 p.m. And there's all types of tables. There's regular tables in the middle of the restaurant, and then there's nice booth tables on the sides with a nice cushiony seats. So the gringo says to the host, hostess, waiter, waitress, is it all right if we sit in the booth? And they said, no, you have to be 3 or 4 people at least in order to sit in a booth. And for the gringo, it was confusing because there's nobody in the restaurant. It's Argentina, so nobody's going to come for another few hours. And these are customers. They're going to pay you. And, well, they're Americans, so they're going to give you a big tip because that's part of the gringo American culture. So give them the booth, give them good service. There's nothing wrong with it. But no, the restaurant said, no, we cannot give you a booth. No way, cannot do it. You're only 2 people. So those are just a few examples. For gringos, that attitude just shows that Argentinians don't really like money. Now, it does make sense because in Argentina, there's a lot of inflation. And Argentinians try to spend money as quickly as they can because there's no point in saving it if it's going to be inflated until it's worth nothing. So that does make sense. But of course, if you're Argentinian and you want to just explain why this attitude exists in Argentina, well, let us know down below in the comments. All right, the 6th thing that's confusing about Argentina is the free university. Now, the economic situation in Argentina is very bad, and I feel for the Argentinians. At the same time, it seems very confusing that Argentinians have free education. No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing that they give free education to their own citizens. The thing that's confusing is that they give free education to international students. Because a big problem with Argentina is the government never has enough money in their budget to pay for everything. And that's one reason why inflation is such a problem in Argentina. At the same time, Argentina has an incredible education system and some of the best universities in Latin America. So you think, because of this, that Argentinians would charge at least a little bit of money to the foreigners in order to make a little bit of money for themselves. But no, instead, they let Brazilians, Colombians, other Latinos come to their country for free, get an education. Many times, especially the Brazilians, they'll get their degree and then they'll return to their home country to make a lot of money. So they don't really contribute anything to the Argentinian economy. So again, I think for a country with economic problems that the Argentinians would charge money for university, but for foreigners, but they don't. And for me, it's very confusing. So if you're an Argentinian, you want to explain why international students should get free education in Argentina, I would like to know because it's very confusing. And the last thing that's confusing about Argentina, and this is very controversial in Argentina, and honestly, I don't really want to talk about it, but it is confusing. And I want to explain this just so Argentinians can explain it a little bit better to foreigners that go to Argentina and want to understand a little bit better. And that is the Malvinas Islands. So a quick history lesson, the Malvinas Islands, well, in English they're called the Falkland Islands, are British territory. But in the 80s, the Argentinians decided to invade the island, to conquer it again, because for Argentinians, the Malvinas are part of Argentina. But this is very confusing for gringos. Now, Argentinians, if you're watching this, I am not saying this because I'm from Canada, and Canada was once part of the British Empire. I'm just saying this because it's confusing. So on the Malvinas, They did a referendum, and 97% of the people said they want to stay a part of Britain, of the United Kingdom. But for Argentinians, they don't care about this. For them, the Malvinas is Argentinian and they will get it back. Honestly, if Argentina had a stronger economy, many people say that they could easily conquer the Malvinas because the British military isn't really that strong at the moment. But yeah, this is just confusing because the people on the island want to be part of Britain. They don't want to be part of Argentina. And I have read about the history about the Malvinas. I do understand, I think for 2 years it was part of Argentina. Like quick history, again, Argentinians, if I'm wrong, let me know. But I believe first the Malvinas was part of the Spanish colonial empire. Then I gotta make sure I get it right. I believe the British conquered it. Then I think the Spanish conquered it again. I think when the Spanish conquered it, there were some gauchos living on the island, raising sheep. Not a lot, but quite a few. And then I believe Argentina got its independence, and then the Malvinas was part of Argentina for 2 years. Then the British conquered it again. I think they kicked the gauchos off. And ever since then, the population of, I believe it's like 33,000, has been almost completely British. And I believe there are no Argentinians that live on the islands. And yeah, it's been part of the British Empire, well, the British, I don't know what to call it to be honest, but it's part of Britain. It's been part of Britain for hundreds of years. Again, I believe, again, if I'm wrong about something, let me know in the comments. Yeah, so it's very confusing. And I believe it's 80% of Argentinians, they want the Malvinas to be part of Argentina. And yeah, again, it's just confusing. If you ask them why, they just will say, because it feels like it's a part of Argentina. It's like, okay, fine. So anyways, for me, those are the 7 things which are confusing about Argentina. So if you're from Argentina, let us know below why these things are the way they are in your country. And if you're not from Argentina, but you've been there, give me your thoughts about the country below in the comments. And thank you for watching the video. Hopefully it was entertaining, interesting. If you want more videos like this, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to get notifications when I release new videos. And I'll see you in the next video, my dear, dear student.